Welcome back. Two Nova Scotia families are calling for changes to a mental health program. It's called Circle of Support, and it's a way for hospital staff to keep loved ones informed about a suicidal patient.
But they say the balance is tilted too far in the direction of privacy and can shut them out even when a patient's safety is at stake. Elizabeth Chiu has the story.
He just ingested 9 grams of bupropion as suicidal.
Sure. Yeah, put him through.
Okay.
This is a call for help from a young man who tried to end his own life.
Are you still there?
Yes.
Before I let you go, before the responders arrive, please put away any pets, gather your medications, unlock the door. Take care, sir, okay? Good luck.
It's March 2018. 24-year-old Garrett Conway had overdosed on his antidepressant and bipolar disorder medications. Russ and Yana, his parents, were in Arizona getting some rest when Garrett overdosed. Their youngest son, Spencer, broke the news. Garrett was back in hospital.
And he just said, hey, they're going to actually hold me for an additional 24 hours. So I thought, awesome. As long as you're in the hospital, you're safe. I'll call mom and dad and let them know.
Tuesday.
Garrett shared his struggles with his parents and Spencer, but they felt assured because he put their names on a special document 5 months before his suicide attempt.
Yeah, that was...
Consent to share information with family and friends, your Circle of Support.
Circle of Support is a Nova Scotia Health Authority program. Mental health patients tell the hospital who to call if they're in distress. It aims to balance patient privacy with safety. But here's the issue. Consent can be withdrawn at any time. So Garrett was still allowed to retract his consent, shutting his parents out of information sharing even while in the ER after he was suicidal. He was assessed as a low suicide risk and released.
Question that kept coming over and over in my mind was, why was he let go? Why was he let go?
Circle of Support has come full circle for Fred Fountain. His advocacy led to the creation of the program after his son, Alex, went to the same Halifax hospital where Garrett was admitted. Alex took his life the day after he left the ER. That was 10 years ago. Fred would have intervened to help his son if only he knew. He says it's time to review Circle of Support, which he says is tilted too far in the direction of patient privacy.
I think it has done a lot of good, but there have been a lot of successes, but there's still too many failures, and I think there are areas where it needs to be improved. This is for Garrett Conway and for Alex Fountain.
Nova Scotia's suicide rate is rising. Last year, 140 people died by suicide. 10 years earlier, 94 people took their lives. That's an increase of nearly 50%. Clinical psychologist Simon Sherry doesn't think notifying family or friends about a loved one in crisis is the most effective way to reduce Nova Scotia's suicide problem. What's needed, he says, is a modern suicide prevention plan to replace the current one from 13 years ago.
And until there's a political will to implement a proper suicide prevention strategy, some of our most vulnerable citizens are going to continue to die.
The Nova Scotia government says it's working on a new plan, and in the meantime, it's spending more than $4 million this year on suicide prevention initiatives. The Nova Scotia Health Authority, though, doesn't offer any specific suicide prevention programs. Rather, suicide risk assessment is integrated into the treatment and care it provides patients. But at Toronto's St. Michael's Hospital, they're tackling suicide head-on. Suicide interventionist Yvonne Bergmans has created a program for people at high risk of suicide to build emotional literacy skills to prevent suicidal thoughts. But they're given something else. Participants are urged to fill out a form for the emergency department. It directs staff to call a loved one when they're in crisis. Unlike in Nova Scotia, where patients who've attempted suicide are asked, do you still want your family contacted? Bergmans believes that revoking consent should wait for 2 to 3 months after the crisis has passed.
A number of clients who have told me that they fake or lie their way out of an emergency department because they know how to play the system as it is, because being miserable and thinking about ending your own life is sometimes less traumatic than being in an emergency department.
Jay has filled out the form, but doubts he'll ever need it. Even though he's had suicidal thoughts since he was 12, he's no longer planning to die. He's planning to live.
I want people to realize that there is hope.
That day back in March of 2018, Spencer picked Garrett up from the hospital. He'd been there some 30 hours.
And so on the one hand, I'm thinking to myself, like, well, the medical staff cleared you, so I guess, like, that's good. But you also just overdosed 24 hours ago, so... But he told me, he said, you know, you don't need to worry. Everything's going to be okay. I kind of have some dark thoughts right now, but they'll pass. They always do.
Shortly after he was dropped off at home, Garrett tried to end his life again. His parents caught the next flight home.
I believe in you. I believe in miracle.
They prayed for a miracle, but after 3 days in the hospital, Garrett died.
Flying home, all I wanted to do was just to be able to put my arms around Garrett and hold him, and that was one thing that was really amazing, and I look at it as a gift from God.
When I look at it, I do believe that protecting Garrett's right to privacy ultimately took his life.
Their hope that the program is rewritten so in case a patient, a loved one, is suicidal, they cannot break their circle of support. Elizabeth Chiu, CBC News, Bedford.
And if you or someone you know is suffering from mental health issues or suicidal thoughts, there are places to turn for help. The Nova Scotia Mental Health Crisis Line is available to anyone who needs it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The toll-free number is 1-888-429-8167.